Captain's Log, subdate 200504. While replacing the bioneural gel pads, I noticed a microSD card wedged between a power coupling and a power converter. Upon inserting the SD card into my tricorder, I realized it was a looped and locked Rickroll. Fuck's sake. I have transported the tricorder into space. Before we start, there's a new video on Moisky Live, and I'll be streaming Euro Truck Simulator 2 on Omegon Plays tonight, both linked in the description down below. Today I'd like to talk about the US women's football team, or soccer for those who don't understand foot and ball, because a decision has come to light concerning their fight for equal pay, one that actually is quite interesting and somewhat humorous. As many of you will undoubtedly be aware, there is the Equality Pay Act. Many countries have it. Equal pay for equal work. Yes. Well, a US judge has rejected the players' claims they were being underpaid compared to the men. They were seeking $66 million, which in real money is £52.8 million, which is in damages, or reparations as I'm sure many will like to call it. For the 28 women's national team players who filed the lawsuit against the US Soccer Federation, spokeswoman Molly Levinson has said that they plan to appeal the decision, and that they are shocked, disappointed, and that they will not give up the hard work for equal pay, and that we are confident in our case and steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that girls and women who play this sport will not be valued as lesser just because of their gender. What's really interesting to me about that is that female players get 13% of the revenue the Women's World Cup generates. Men's players get 9% of the revenue their World Cup generates. The reason men make more is that they generate well over 4 times as much. If anything, the women are overpaid. That is from Matt Walsh tweet. It was connected to a tweet by one of the players for the women's football team, who has said, "We will never stop fighting for equality." I tend to lean towards the detractors who are in the responses to that tweet. You bring in less money, so you will be paid less. That is a statement of fact. Women who play in the United Kingdom get much less than the men, because simple fact, just because the women's Arsenal team are one of the best in the world, doesn't mean they can pack out an arena. A lot of their revenue is derived from ticket sales. And before someone then says, but what about TV? What TV? The ratings are tanked. Nobody watches it. Nobody would watch it. You have to drive up interest, and that takes time. And as amazing as the ratings were for the US women's team when they won their 4th World Cup, you guys were too busy championing Hope Solo, a domestic abuser. And that's not a joke. You were doing that when those claims came to light. I will admit it is impressive to win 4 World Cups. My country's only done it once. Quite jealous. And you've got 5 Olympic gold medals. That is something to be definitely championed for and celebrated. Of course it is. But that doesn't entitle you to more money. It never entitles you to more money. It just means you're really good with the limited resources you have against equally limited opposition. I'm sure if somebody dived into the quality of your opposition, they'd work out just how good they were in the first place. Federal Judge Gary Klausner has allowed the players' case for unfair treatment in travel, housing and medical support to go to trial, something a little different. That will be in mid-June in LA. Giving the ruling, the court said the women's team has been paid more on both a cumulative and an average per-game basis than the men's team over the class period, which is true. I really do hope some of you weren't comparing the salaries of some of the British players who came to the US to a fanfare to make millions of dollars, and then somehow average it out over all the other players in the US men's team who make a lot less as well, who granted get better viewings and ratings, and while not going as far in the men's World Cup, because they're against, I would argue, significantly better opposition, the men themselves make absolutely nothing. One of the greatest American football players, not Brad Friedel the goalkeeper, no, Landon Donovan, didn't make too much while playing for LA Galaxy. Certainly not compared to that of David Beckham. The point stands. The money is not there. The interest is not either, especially when you have the NFL, NHL, and MLB, I believe. I'm not going to be drawn in on the World Championship aspect of something that's predominantly only competed in America and Canada. That's a discussion for another time. The USSF has said that it wanted to work with the team to chart a positive path forward to grow the game both here at home and around the world. In its statement, which I've linked below, it's quite long, it added, US soccer has long been the world leader for women's game on and off the field, and we are committed to continuing that work. Which is true. Arguably the women's teams in America are paid a bit better than they are in the United Kingdom. Certainly something to brag about. However, if you're still not able to drive up more interest than that of a local Sunday club, then you're not going to get paid more. There are arguments that were made by both the men's team and the women's teams that the federation itself was withholding vast amounts of revenue. That is, of course, a discussion for something else when it comes to the subject of corruption. And, of course, equal pay for all of those involved. But when it comes to how much men get compared to how much women get, it has been proven that there is no valid argument. I did thoroughly enjoy reading up on USSF President Carlos Codera, who had to resign in March after lawyers for the US football's governing body made submissions as part of the lawsuit in which it was claimed that the job of a male footballer on the national team requires a higher level of skill based on speed and strength than female counterparts. He had to resign for telling the actual truth. That's nice. And I'll be honest, I'm still astonished that people are still doing the equal pay for equal work argument in an environment, a business environment, where to do that, everyone gets paid unfairly, because when somebody brings in more money than someone else, they have to take a pay cut so the person who's not as good can feel better. It's not like working in a shop where you essentially do actually do the same job and there is no real argument of doing it better because it's very hard to tell the difference between one shelf stacker to another. You're just there to replenish stock, rotate stock, reduce stock. When it comes to businesses that require a level of meritocracy, yes, there is going to be different levels of skill when it comes to things like football, and let's say all other major sports. Let's throw in a few other industries where there is a pay gap. I'm going to go to the two obvious ones, modelling and adult work. But you don't see anyone complaining about that. I can't imagine why. I can understand why the men's team want to support the women's, because I believe everyone's calling them simps at the moment on Twitter. I only just found out what that word means. It's good to know. As far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't be paid the same just because you do the same job when your job does not generate as much money. Because your business, and the same goes for the men here, a lot of that comes from merchandising and from ticket sales. People have to want to go to see you perform. They have to want it. Take the WWE, for example. Over years, they've had to introduce more and more women's wrestling to try and drive up the interest, to the point where they've had women headline pay-per-views. But they've had to use huge names to make it work, which would then in turn ruin the original story they planned, just to make sure their buy rate was high enough to legitimize having it in the first place. But they've had to introduce more and more, and they have done it carefully. They tried it in the past multiple times. It didn't really work because you only ever had 2 to 3 wrestlers that were noteworthy or good. Because somehow WWE didn't know how to actually use women, other than as objects. One can certainly debate what it is like now. Go ahead. My original overarching point still stands regardless of the poking. And you have to give credit to the WWE for continually force-feeding people things they didn't want, over and over again, to the point where they now want it. Cough, cough. Roman Reigns, cough, cough. Or Charlotte Flair literally everywhere, honestly. With this case, I'm very much interested to know what you think, so please do let me know in the comments down below. If I don't see you tonight for Euro Truck Simulator 2, because I'm an exciting man, hope you'll have a fantastic Monday, and thank you all for listening.